Hello, yes, it's Joe here for Joyrider TV, back with some more Q&A live. I hope that you're having a lovely time. So this is being recorded live on Wednesday, the 14th of April in the afternoon. If you happen to be watching this at a later time, then do feel free, of course, to put any questions you have in the comments section. But of course, it not being live, that means that I'll have to get back to you later on rather than in the video, like you might experience while you're watching the video. Once again, we've got some preloaded questions that have been coming in throughout the week, which I'll be answering. And throughout the session, we'll obviously have some live questions as well. All of the questions that I address during the session, I will index afterwards and put that in the video description so you can check out down there what is covered in the video. Hi Timon, great to have you with us as always. Feel free to check in, say hello, and I'm going to get on with the first preloaded question. No point sticking around, is there? So this one comes from D Burden 83, who says, what type of knot do you use to connect your trapeze rope and the shock cord? You're not going to believe it. I have come prepared this week. I've actually remembered something. I'm sure there was something else I was meant to remember. But we'll just go through the dog bone as well, the rope lock. Hi, Kush. Great to have you with us. It's pretty sunny here. Summer is definitely upon us. All right, so hey Pano, hi Robin, thanks for coming. This is what is Hobie call this the rope lock, but it's commonly known as a dog bone because of the kind of shape. Hi there, listening in at work, great stuff. I think that's the best thing to do at work. All right, so the way we thread the rope through here first, we're just looking at the trapeze system, is we'll come out of here. We're coming out of here. Hi, Max. Thanks for tuning in. Coming out of there through the top part. And then this is the trick shot that actually makes it work, is then we go through this loop here. We'll just feed a little bit through. And then there we are. And this is the part that wants to go up to the wire. So if you've got your ring of the trapeze wire, when this pulls, that is going to sit flat against the ring rather than having, the eyelet, let's call that, rather than having the rope sitting against there. It's just much more satisfactory. And then the way that we're connecting these here at Wildwind, and I can tell you why we do it like this. It's because occasionally this gets changed and not set up correctly. And if that happens, the rope can just slip straight through here, which meant we did change how we connect this. And what I do is I put a thumb knot in the bottom, just a simple knot like that, which means if this does slip, it's not going to come all the way off the end. It's only going to go that far. Little safety double something, yes. And then the way I like to attach the shock cord is we just put a little thumb knot in the end of the shock cord, thus, and then we just pretty much do the same thing again, but around the rope like that. It's not the neatest solution, but it won't come undone. And again, this knot is going to save you. So there you go. That is how we are tying our trapeze elastic on here at Wildwind. This is a proven method that works. Thank you very much. All right, any other rope questions? I have got rope with me to answer them. All right, so I'm just going to go on to our next question already. Look at this, second question before we hit 5 minutes. This is from, I don't know how you pronounce this. I would say it must be Soy 11, the falling girl, who asks, will a 14 pitch pole if I fly a hull? Well, of course, as anybody who's ever stepped foot on a Hobie 14 will know, if you don't treat the boat with respect, then it is going to bite you. The 14, sorry, is a wolf in wolf's clothing. But you can fly the hull as high as you like and the boat won't pitch pole as long as you put yourself in a suitable position forwards and backwards. So let's just have a look at where that would be. So firstly, if we're sailing upwind, before we look at the position here, if we're sailing upwind, of course, wind coming from the top of the board, sail is over here. If we're sailing upwind, it is actually impossible to pitch pole. You can stick the nose in by getting really far forwards on the boat, but the pitch pole is always caused by either sticking the nose into a wave or getting driven down by the pressure in the rig. With the wind in this direction, all of the pressure is actually forcing the bows upwards, so you're not going to pitch pole going upwind. So for that reason, we're actually going to draw the crew position on here as well. For that reason, you want to be, let's say you're on the trapeze single-handed, you want to be fairly far forwards when you're sailing upwind. This is, of course, in trapezing conditions. But that is not, you know, the definitive, this is where you stand. You'll always gauge how far forwards or backwards to be on the boat by looking at the hull. And what we're trying to do at all times is have the hull so it's pretty much flat in the water. So if the nose is up a bit, you can come forwards. If the nose is going down, then you're too far forwards and you need to move back. So on our beam reach, in the trapezing conditions, beam reach is sailing with the wind side on to the boat. Then if we look at how the pressure is working in this situation, wind is coming down, hitting the sail, then that is going like that and then like that. And that is going to force the bows down somewhat. So on the beam reach, we are going to want to move further back, which it really depends on how much wind there is. But you want to start moving back along the boat. Again, looking at the profile of the hull in the water and trimming it accordingly. And then when it's windy, where the fun happens is, well, at all times, of course, but when we're sailing on the broad reach, then we've got the same effect here. Wind is coming down. There's the wind. And if we now imagine the wind blowing into the sail, that's really pushing the bows of the boat down. So on the broad reach, we want to get as far back as possible to counterbalance the effect of the bow getting driven down by the wind. The other thing which is going to force the bows down more is if you try to keep too much power on. So as you come away from the wind, if you do feel the bows are going down and you're just sailing with the mainsail, like you might be on a 14, is just to let the traveller out more, ease the main sheet out. Like what might happen is you get the boat sailing along and then in the gusts, you might feel the bow starts to go. So that's the point at which you want to ease out the main sheet, and that will help to stop the bow going down any further. But you can fly the hull, but it's a matter of practice. So if you've seen any of the sort of speed run videos, you'll see that I sail on the broad reach. My aim is to have the hull in the air, and that's how we achieve the really big speeds. Oh, yes. All right. So, Willem, I'm going to come on to your question in a second because I feel that Robin's question is related to this. And Robin says, what kind of effects does mast rake have? In this situation, what the mast rake is going to do when we're talking about this is the further we put the mast to the back of the boat, we've got a handy drawing here we could just add to. If we put the mast further back, what that's going to do is put more weight at the back of the boat. So that is also going to help to lift the bows. So by raking the mast back in a strong wind, it's going to help to lift the bows. If we have the mast too far back, because that might make it sound like when it's windy, let's just put the mast back as far as it will go. But if we put the mast too far back, we won't actually be able to get any tension here where the main sheet is. So we won't be able to get any tension in the back edge of the sail. So we just won't be able to sail upwind due to a lack of that ability to get the tension in the sail. And not only that, this weight that we're putting back, that is going to put excess load on the rudders as well. So we'll get very heavy steering if we put the mast too far back. So there's a very subtle balance to achieve with the mast rake. But with the mast rake, if you feel when you're out sailing and it's windy, like if it's double trapezing conditions or single trapezing if you're sailing solo, and you feel that the boat just doesn't want to go every time you sheet in, it feels like perhaps the rudders are stalling, like it just feels like they're not gripping and the boat isn't really going very fast, then just on a 16 to loosen off the jib halyard, just like about that much, which is going to help the mast to come back and fall away to leeward as well. That is going to help the boat to kind of breathe a bit, and you should feel that it goes faster. There we go. But yeah, we could. Yeah, we could. All right. So we've got Willem who says he's considering an FX1 for a first cat. I'm pretty experienced in dinghy sailing. We have a 505. Excellent. I actually, it's one of the first boats that I started sailing when I was younger, was a 505. I used to crew on 505s, lovely boats. Yeah, I think being an experienced dinghy sailor, an FX1 would be a fine choice if you're looking to be doing most of your sailing solo, or if you are sailing with two people, you will be wanting to keep the combined crew weight, I'd say, under about 140 if you want to be using the boat to its full capability. If you go above 140 kilos, two up on an FX1, then you could really do better by going for like a Hobie 18, Hobie Tiger, F18 sort of boat. Whereas if you're going to do most of your sailing single-handed, the FX1 is an excellent choice. It handles really nicely. In fact, you can tack an FX1 very much like a monohull because it's got the flat-bottomed hulls which just spin, which is very nice indeed. Yes, I'd highly recommend it. Of course, what I'd recommend even more, especially if you're in Europe, is to head down here. We'll be open in a couple of weeks, in a month, let's say. And we've got 3 FX1s down here ready for you to try. I know that's not always possible to get down here. All right, so I'd say yes and yes. All right, Timon says, my sailing season is starting this week. Oh, yes. Exciting times. Oh, Carlos here with some complimentary. You're amazing. Smart. Thanks for the info. Thanks very much, Carlos, for acknowledging that I am amazing. That is very kind. All right. All right. This next question is quite a juicy one. This is from Jeffrey, who says, I'm just going to read it out. I'm to a point of my sailing, my 1984 Hobie Cat signature edition, nice. I have a problem with the capsizing issue. I made a writing pole. I'm alone, nobody else. We're setting the scene here. The scene, sorry. He's 62 years old and weighs 175 pounds, which I believe is like somewhere between 75 and 80 kilos. Am I going to make this happen, or am I have to sell it? Now, I think we'll all agree here. We are united in saying, Jeffrey, you are going to make it happen. Yes, you can right your boat with a pole or a bag. Of course, you all know that I'm a big fan of the bag because it's less stuff to carry on the boat. And with these methods of help for righting your capsized boat, it really is like a sliding scale of how much weight or leverage you need. It's in different wind strengths. So the tests that I've done have been in 0 wind, because that's the only way you can really have a true control of the conditions, is if there's no wind at all. How much weight does it take to right your Hobie 16? In fact, I'm just gonna, can I do this without upsetting things? What is this? I'm just doing a conversion. All right, so what I've found, thank you very much there for the info, is to write a Hobie 16 in 0 wind, you need 260, was that 265? Yeah, 265 pounds, which is 120 kilograms. So for me, I'm 90 kilos. So in my bag, I need to have 30 kilograms of water. So I need a third. Well, you're never going to get a capsized writing bag completely full. So if your bag says on it 30 litres, you're going to get probably maximum 20 kilos of water in there. Whereas if your bag is, so for me, 50 litre bag means I can easily get 30 kilos of water in the bag. So you being more like 80 kilos, you're going to need 40 kilos of water to bring the boat upright. I know you've said you've got a pole, but again, I'm a big fan of the bag. And you can just pick up to it. There's many ways that you can do it. Oh, someone's saying stones, man. Stones, remember your roots. That is funny. All right, hold on. Is that saying? You see on the Apple command spacebar function, it doesn't come up with stones. It says pounds or kilograms. But thanks, Sean. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know how many stones I am, to be honest. So where was I? Yeah, so you want to have 120 kilos. So if you just want to try this system out, but you don't want to spend a lot of money in the experimentation, finding out whether it works for you or not, you can just get one of those large garden waste bags, which I think I have listed one on my Amazon affiliate page. And you can just try it out with that. Those bags work absolutely fine. That's the type of bag I used in the video. And it's only by chance that I've since then, I don't know where the bag that I've got now came from. So there we go. And with the pole, again, I think a good thing to do here, Jeffrey, would be to get your boat in light winds, get into water that's deep enough that it's definitely deep enough for your rudders. And so possibly like chest deep water, get an anchor out or tie it up to a buoy or something, and then do some R&D for yourself with your pole, and perhaps have a look at getting a bag, see how that works for you as well. There we go. But Jeffrey, don't give up on the 16. All right. Who we got next? All right. Willem says, yes, the Hobie's 1416 doesn't tack as nice. I'm sadly in South Africa. That's not sad at all. What a great place to be. I don't know if that would be the other question, whether you should get an FX1. Have you actually found one for sale in South Africa? I don't know how many FX1s made it down there. I think, I could be wrong, but I think maybe the FX1s were just being built in Europe or maybe in the States as well. But I'm probably wrong on that. It was probably both. Okay. All right. Hello, Reginald. You look like you're having a blast. Looks fast. Oh, yes. I don't know what you're talking about, but yes, it's fast. Whatever it is that you can see, it is fast. All right. Sean says it's 14 or 16 pounds to a stone. Aha. It's Keith. You'll know Keith. I just actually this afternoon, I put in the community tab that I've been told by my YouTube advisors to use the community tab every day, because it's a good way of staying in touch with your community without having to produce a video. It's actually Keith, who is the fisherman featured in Show Us Your Cat. I believe it was episode 84 in Okinawa, Japan. He's very good at fishing on his Hobie 14. He says, wondered if you're going to give walking the plank method for the righting the boat a go this year. Yeah, he says, I know you got kind of burned out trying righting poles last year, but the plank looks like a winner. Inquiring minds need to know. Yeah, I think I have to get a bit of an end result on the pole. I know there are some very good videos on YouTube of people using righting poles successfully. And they're utilising a big block of foam which stops the pole from damaging the boat. I haven't actually got a big block of foam to use, and I'm too tight to go out and buy one. So it's just a bubble wrap job for me to not damage the boat. But yes, we'll get some closure on the righting pole. It's almost time to go out sailing again. So this is going to be one of the first things that needs to be addressed. I will do this, like I said, in Jeffrey's situation. I'll do it in a controlled environment. I'll have the boat in the shallow water and test it out in 0 wind to see how well it really works. Okay, hello, Dan. Dan says, can't stick around. Oh my goodness. Dan is currently in a kayak. Is anybody else currently afloat? I think that's good going. Well done, Dan. All right. Willem says he's seen some FX1s on the south coast. Haven't found one for sale, but he's looking for one. Excellent. Well, if you want me to make a video just asking the South African branch of the Joyrider TV community if anybody knows of one for sale, just send me an email as a reminder, and I will make one of those short videos just to let the world know that you're looking. Okay. All right, let's see. We've got Sean says, I've been trying to work out if I'd suit a Hobie 16 or would need a small child rather than another bloke as a crew. 15 stone, 210 pounds, which is, yeah, that's about the same as me, I think. Hoping to shed some weight though. Yeah, I think it just depends on what you want to do with the boat. If you want to be really competitive racing a Hobie 16, I believe the sweet spot is, all right, I'm going to have to do another conversion, is about 130 kilos, which is 286 pounds combined crew weight, if you want to be competitive on the race course. If you're not thinking about racing, then you can have a lovely time on a Hobie 16 with a decent amount of weight on there. I'd say, let's think, like up to about 180 kilos. So possibly you and somebody else the same size, as long as there's a bit of wind, you're going to have a lovely time. And the 16 is really going to tickle along nicely single-handed as well. So I think it's a good choice. Okay, we've got Mazp or Mazp. I found a €700 used trailer online. I'll see it this weekend. What's important to check? Oh, that is a tricky one. I think, you know, I'm not any kind of mechanic, but what I would do actually is I would put in a YouTube search of what, rather than taking my word for it, because I know that you should check to see if the wheels move around, because that would be an indication that the wheel bearings are on their way out if they have got play in them. Have a look at the hitch, all the metalwork, is it really rusty, that kind of thing. But I would do a search on YouTube, buying a used trailer, and have a look at that, because I think it is very important for your safety to make sure that you know what you're looking for. And I should really look at one of those myself. Thanks, good question, but I'm not the right other person to answer it. Oh, hello, Hayden. Thanks for tuning in. All right, so I'm just having a read. All right, Keith says, great, looking forward to it. This is referring to the writing pole. I'll be giving it a go here too. 2x4 and some line. Yeah, that would do it. All right, Sean says, bumming around about with the more bit of madness. I'm getting old. Yeah, so I'm getting odd or old. Anyway, yeah, so I think the 16 is going to suit you nicely. All right, we've got Alessandro. Hello, Alessandro. Do you set the main traveller in a beam reach in how do you set the traveller on a beam reach in a moderate wind, something like 10 to 12 knots? Okay, I'm just going to take the default setting. If you don't state what type of boat you're talking about a Hobie 16, because there's more of those than anything else in the world. So I would generally set the traveller on a 16 in 10 to 12 knots of wind, beam reach, maybe about a foot from the centre of the boat. So just let it out a foot. But if having let it out that much, to get the telltales on the mainsail flying, you're sailing with a very tight main sheet, perhaps it's a good idea to let it out a little bit more. So on a beam reach in that kind of wind, you don't want to have the main sheet absolutely cranked, because if you've got the main sheet in full, when you get a gust, you start going forwards. What you need to do is have the ability to bring the main sheet in more as your apparent wind comes more round to the front. So for that reason, have the traveller in a little bit more, so you've got the main sheet out a little bit. And then just a quick recap on the telltales, because I'm sure everybody here knows what we're talking about. But on a lot of 16s, we've actually got a convenient little window like this to see our telltales through. And we'll have the telltale on the windward side. And actually the first one we'll look at is the telltale on the leeward side, which we're going to do in blue. So this is the one we can see through the sail. And what we want is that one flying straight back at all times. If at any time that telltale isn't flying straight back, it means your sail's in too tight. You need to ease it out, which could be either the traveller or the main sheet, depending on the situation. But what we're generally doing is setting the traveller and then playing the main sheet for the subtle adjustments. And then the telltale on the windward side, if it's lifting slightly, that means that the sail can come in a bit. So what we want is this windward telltale, depending on the wind, between this kind of angle and straight back. When it gets really windy, it's not actually possible to pull the sail in enough to get this in this zone. That will probably be up here somewhere, because if we pull it in enough, we're going to capsize because we're just trying to hold too much power. So the windward telltale, we're having this kind of range here, outside telltale, always straight back. But yeah, I hope that answers your question about the traveller there. All right. Dan, hello Dan, says near Chicago. Okay. I have an 84 Hobie 16 and my jib travellers need replacing. They're currently the lock-in place type. Should I get the spring-loaded type that can be moved easily while sailing? Yeah, I think it is. I did talk about it in a video, which was, I can't remember exactly what I called the video, but it was retrofitting your older 16 with the jib traveller system where you have the rope so you can adjust the jib traveller while you're going along. I would say it's definitely worth putting that system on if you really want to pimp your boat and do everything you can for it. I've changed my tune a little bit since making the video where I believe I said it's only really necessary to change it if you're looking to race. But I think it is a nice thing to have on your boat because that ability to easily change the jib traveller is nice. So I would say definitely check out that video on the jib traveller system. I think if you put in a YouTube search Hobie 16 jib traveller, then that one should come up. But yeah, I would say you definitely want to be able to adjust your jib travellers on a 16. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get a good sail shape in certain conditions. The most important being when it's windy, you definitely want to be setting your jib traveller on the outside so that you haven't got too much jibbing for the mainsail. So just to recap here on your travellers is the jib traveller should always be as far out as a percentage or more than the main traveller. So we always want to have, always helps to draw the boat to get an idea of where we are. So if we've got the main, we always want to have the jib a little bit more open than the mainsail. If the jib is more closed than the mainsail, what's going to happen is the wind's going to come, let's do that in a different colour, is the wind is going to come off the jib and hit the back of the mainsail kind of square, which is going to give us like a turbulent airflow, and Christmas is cancelled for boat speed. There we go. All right, Hayden says, oh, lost my way. Had one of the preloaded questions, but I'll ask it again since I was, oh yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, good to, I don't know if that's a cue jump or not, Hayden, but I think that's good. Yeah. How do we get the rig tension on a Hobie 14? Because I think a lot of the time you will be solo on that bad boy. What I would do is, of course, we've got the mast up. If you're going to go out sailing and you want to get your rig tension on your boat, this will work for anything. You could do two things. It's going to be using the main sheet and either a trapeze wire, or you could actually use the main sail. But using let's just say using a trapeze wire. So should I draw this? Let's draw this. So what we'll do is, here's the boat, there's the mast. We'll take, so mast is up, that's the first part. We will attach the trapeze wire to the main sheet, and then we'll crank the main sheet in hard So that is, of course, going to bring the mast to the back. And then we want to pull the traveller all the way to the side that we're tightening up. So all the way over to that side. And then what's a good idea is if you actually put a line tying the traveller in that position, because what you don't want is the traveller to go into the centre or further across while you've got your shroud disconnected and your mast could fall down, which would be quite embarrassing and could be costly if it hits somebody's car, which has actually happened to us here before. Yeah, so pull the main sheet in tight, traveller all the way outside, tie it in position, and then release the shroud and get it on to the correct number. I know you did ask in your preloaded question, what settings do we actually put the rigging in? We haven't got a set position where we put our 14 rigging, which I could recall, because we're not using standard rigging on our 14. So with most Hobies from the factory, it seems to be on the fourth hole on the adjuster on the shrouds here. Fourth hole from the bottom seems to be how they judge the length of the rigging. So fourth from the bottom seems about right. There we go. There we go. Alessandro, just backing up my suspicion there that everybody, most people are sailing Hobie 16s. But not Rob. Rob has got a Trac 14. Excellent. I like the look of the Trac 14, actually. I've seen a few now. I have done a Trac, I think I've done a Trac 16 t-shirt. Yeah, check that out. But we've also had a Trac 16, I think it was, on Show Us Your Cat. Okay, his Trac 14 does not have a trapeze. Are riggings easily adaptable between different types of cats? No, the problem with changing the rigging from one type of cat to another type of cat is that you're going to have to get very, very lucky if the actual rigging is the right length to take, like, for example, a Hobie 14 rigging and put it on your Trac 14. The likelihood of it being the right length is pretty slim. So I would assume that you've already got some rigging on your 14. So what I would do if I'd just been given a boat like that, I know the Trac 14 hasn't been built for quite a long time, so it would definitely be a good idea to get the rigging replaced. So measure your rigging, your shrouds, which would be the wires at the side, your forestay, which is this one that goes to the front, and the bridle wires as well, which are the two wires that come off the forestay there. There's the other bow. Lovely. Measure those bad boys and get some new ones made, because I've said this before, is you don't want your mast falling down, because it's a pain. Even like if you have got someone who's going to tow you back in, it's still a pain. It ends up in a real mess. You could damage your sail, you could damage your trampoline, you could damage your mast, you could damage perhaps you've got your crew on the leeward side of the boat, you could damage them. So check your rigging, replace it every, I'd say 4 to 6 years is probably fair. And then for the trapeze wire, now this wants to be a slightly narrower wire. Like for your shrouds, probably about 4 mil will be good. And then for your trapeze wires, about 2.5 mil is a good diameter. And then the length of the trapeze wires, I would say you want to be getting them. I measured some. I made a video about this earlier. It would be about 50, maybe 60 centimeters shorter than the shrouds, because they're anchored at the same place. But if you want to put trapeze wires on the boat, then that would be the kind of vibe that you're looking for. But if you're brand new to sailing, you don't have to put the trapeze wires on there from the get-go. You could go and get used to sailing the boat and just sitting on the trampoline or on the hull first, and then once you've got a feel for that, then add the trapeze wires, get a trapeze harness, and then take it to the next level. All right. I'd like to say hello to everybody, by the way. Hello, everybody. Please feel free to hit the like button at any time. Hayden says also I'm about 160 pounds, 73 kilograms, mostly solo sailing, but will take out a 2 to 3 year old. A second person, sorry, I got that wrong. A second person 2 to 3 times a year. Opinion on 14 versus 16. I like pushing it pretty hard. It is a tough one, actually. But if it's only rarely that you're taking a second person, it does depend on the size of that second person. I certainly wouldn't fancy sailing a Hobie 14 with more than, let's say, 140 kilograms on there. More than 140 kilograms on a Hobie 14, and it's not going to go unless it's really windy. But then, of course, the hulls on the 14 are that small that if you're putting that much weight on the boat in a high wind, you are going to be the captain of the pitchpole express or the capsized backwards express. So I would say if you are going to, that is one consideration. The 16 you can handle in a decent amount of wind if you reef the mainsail or put a small sail on there. So I would be tempted to have that versatility to go for the 16. You can push the 16 very, very hard. You've got more volume in the hulls as well. If you want to see a 16 being pushed hard single-handed, you don't have to look any further than Joyrider TV, I can tell you. Back in September, October last year, I did a few videos at the end of the season where certainly giving it some juice. Hayden continues, if I'm taking out the second person, I'm not looking to go that fast because they're usually new to sailing. Yeah, if they're new to sailing and quite small, you'd be all right. But I would, yeah, the 14, of course, it's got a lot going for it. It's a great boat, feels fantastic. And when it's windy, you can really send it. So I'm not going to make a decision for you, but I'd say either is going to come with pros and cons. Of course, if you're mostly sailing solo, there's also on land to consider. And if you capsize, of course, with a 14, you should quite easily be able to right it if you capsize without a bag or anything. On land, 14 is going to be a lot less weight to wheel around on the beach. Yeah, there's some both sides. All right. Hello, Chris. Chris says, any advice on stopping 16 at the start line of a race and then powering up when the horn blows? Yeah, I'd go for this. Yeah, I think any type of catamaran is pretty similar. In that, all right, how should we illustrate this? This is our start line. And then what we want to do is position our boat so that we can definitely get across the line without having to tack after you've hit that 2-minute signal. So putting yourself in no further down. Where would we? So this is the, it has been called in the past the Muppet zone. So don't put your boat in the Muppet zone before the start. In fact, that would be more like that. depending on where you want to start. So there you go. This is the good place, extending over this way, for where to park your boat. And then the best method to stop your boat so you can get it going again quickly is you want to stop your boat so it's kind of like on a close hauled upwind or close reaching kind of point of sail. And you can hold that position by having the traveller out, and then you can just find the sweet spot on the main sheet for what's going to hold you at that angle. And then you could either just have the jib loose, or you could have the jib on the wrong side of the boat, which is preferable, but of course it does take a little bit more time to get organised. And then you just put the rudders across. And if you want to advance forwards a bit, like maybe there's other boats which are starting to go forwards, if other boats are going forwards, then you should start going forwards as well. Never get left behind. If the whole fleet you feel are going to be early for the start, you don't want to lose touch with them. And then when it's time to go, what I would do first is bring the traveller into the position where you're going to be sailing with it and ease out main sheet to control the speed. Once you've got, so this would be, let's say, probably about 20 to 30 seconds before the start, put the traveller in the position where you want it. Then as you get closer to the time, get the jib onto the right side of the boat, again in the correct position, get that cranked in, and then start winding the main sheet in so that when you cross the start line, you are at full speed, double trapezing, whooping and cheering, having a lovely time, and just destroying the rest of the fleet. That is what I would do there. But definitely don't fall into the Muppet zone, because if you do, and like a minute and a half before the start, if you have to go for attack, especially attack under a lot of pressure, a lot of dirty wind there from the other boats as well. If you get that tack wrong, you are going to be not having a good day. So there we go. All right, I'm going to leave that up there for a minute. All right. So, hello, Peter. Great to have you on board. How do you decide about how to set your mast rake on a Hobie 16 depending on the sea and wind conditions? Ooh, that's a juicy one. What I would say is a general rule is you could set your mast rake depending on how much tension you can get in the leach of the sail by pulling in the main sheet. But what I'm not usually particularly scientific about it. When I rig a 16 up, I'll pull the jib halyard on pretty hard to get the mast as tight as possible. And so that would be for light winds, flat water. And then I would just check that, make sure that the mast can rotate freely. If you put on too much rig tension, which is actually, so your mast rake is directly affected by the rig tension. Yeah, to be honest, Peter, I'm not very well equipped to answer this question just off the top of my head, but I'd crank it on for light winds, and then with it cranked on tight, it's going to sound quite confusing. It's a poor answer. Sorry about this, everybody. With it cranked on tight, the rig tension, then when I go to pull the main sheet in, with a lot of effort, I could still get it block to block. There we go. And then if the wind gets stronger, or as your sea state increases, bigger waves, then we want to loosen the rig tension off, which, like we said earlier, is going to allow for more mast rake. And that will just be like that much jib halyard to allow the mast to come back more. And the boat will give you the feedback on whether that is the right amount. I've done a couple of videos on this, to be honest, Peter, and I might have to watch them again myself just to have a little refresher of some actual scientific technique on that. Sorry, I couldn't give you a better answer. Hello, Hutchie. Hutchie missed the start. Well, here you go. Yeah. All right. No problem. All right. In fact, I think I'm just going to take a commercial break at this time for everybody watching later on. All right. And we're back. Okay. All right. So we've been going for 50 minutes now. So if we could have no further questions, I've still got a fair amount in the preloaded and a fair amount on the live chat as well. But thanks for all of your questions so far. It's been very good. All right. I think there's just a bit of chat going between Hayden and Rob there. I won't read that out. Robin. Hello, Robin. Is there a reason you use miles per hour instead of knots on your videos with the GPS? Yeah, it's an annoyance, to be honest. It's not my decision by any stretch of the imagination. The reason on the videos the speed is in miles per hour is because the GoPro app that overlays the speedo only gives you the options of miles per hour or kilometers per hour, which is just not good enough. Come on, GoPro. And in fact, I'm pretty sure it's not working at the moment anyway. So I'm going to have to start using a third-party app to be overlaying the speed. So hopefully knots will be available. Okay. Oh, hello, Pierre. Pierre's here in Quebec, Canada. All right. And we got Jake on board in California, sorry, slip of the tongue. In Northern California. Great to have you with us. And it's the morning there. All right. Rob says he did replace the trampoline on the Trac 14. Replacing the rigging is a great idea. Anything else I should consider replacing? Sails and lines in good shape. No, I would say that sounds about all then. Yeah, I think you'll find out when you get out on the water anything else that you could do with replacing on the boat. But if you've replaced the trampoline is something, unfortunately, that will show its age possibly a lot earlier than anything else, because unless the boat's had a cover on it all of its life, the trampoline is just going to be getting UV all of the time, all day, every day. So replacing the trampoline is one of the best facelifts you can give for your boat. And then the rigging would be number 2 in the list of things to replace. But if your lines are good, it sounds all good there. And Rob continues, he's currently vacationing in Park City, Utah, but from North Minnesota. Nice. All right, Nigel. Hello, Nigel. Best way to sail downwind. All right, let's assume that we're talking no spinnaker. Can we assume we're talking no spinnaker here? All right, best way to sail downwind on a catamaran is with wind coming from the top, as always. Then we're going to be sailing at approximately 136 degrees to the wind. But the way that we do it, because the catamarans are fast, the apparent wind that we're sailing to on the catamaran is very important to pay attention to. And that is what we're going to steer to. So for that reason, on our bridle wires at the front of the boat, we will attach some sort of wind indicator. We use video cassette tape, but you can put a purpose-built wind indicator on there, but the cassette tape is absolutely fine. And then what we're looking for with our apparent wind is we want to sail the boat as far downwind as we can, but we want to be able to keep a flow of air over both sides of the sails. All right, so there are the sails. This is solid gold. So the furthest that we can take the boat downwind for the apparent wind, because it's the apparent wind that we're sailing on, is with the apparent wind on 90 degrees, as that means that the wind is going to hit the sail is going to direct the airflow, and it's all going to be good. There's the airflow there. Just a quick recap on the apparent wind. The apparent wind is a combination of the true wind, our induced wind that we create by going forwards, and the apparent wind is going to be somewhere in between the two, and that is what we're sailing to. So for that reason, when we're sailing downwind, at all times, we're going to be watching these telltales with maximum concentration. We're going to be like, and maybe occasionally having a look for other boats and obstacles and things. But we're keeping those at 90 degrees. If they ever go too far forwards, that means that we're going too deep downwind. And if we were going too deep downwind, what would happen if here is one sail? Too deep downwind would mean that the wind's going to be hitting the sail too much side on, which means on the back of the sail, we're not going to get a nice airflow. Instead, we'll have a turbulent airflow on the outside of the sail. So there we go. If these come back too far, that means that we are going too far upwind, and we'll be going fast, but we won't actually be getting to where we want to go on the downwind. See, that was a much better answer than the one about the mast rake, that's for sure. Thanks, Nigel. Hello, Graham. What would be a good catamaran I should start on sail solo? I only weigh 40 kilograms. All right, so if you're looking at catamaran sailing, let's say for life, I'm guessing that if you're 40 kilos, then you're quite young. The Hobie 14 is a catamaran for life, and you're going to learn some very, very good skills on the 14, because the 14 doesn't allow you to get away with poor technique. Hobie 14, good choice. The other good reason that the Hobie 14 is a good choice is because it's one of the most abundant catamarans in the world. So in theory, there should be quite a few used ones for sale in most countries. The Trac 14, like what Rob's sailing, sounds like a really good option as well, but something in that 14-foot category. Another catamaran you could consider for the shorter time, that is if you are young, and that is why you're 40 kilos. I'm in Pembrokeshire. Oh, that's Nigel who's saying the 14 cat. There you go. It's a 14-foot special this week. Yeah, so yeah, you could consider something smaller, like the Hobie Dragoon would be the obvious choice. I'm very much Hobie. But if you are young and you're going to get heavier, that is a boat that you'd want to change over time. Whereas the Hobie 14 is a boat for life. People are racing the Hobie 14 probably competitively up to about 80 kilograms. So it's a really good choice. If it depends on which country you're in as well. So if one I'd point out is if you are in the UK, then the Dart 15 is also a very good choice, as there's quite a few Dart 15s in the a lot, in fact, of Dart 15s in the UK, and some really good racing and that would be another good boat to start on. So there's some options for you. Oh, Graham's in South Africa. Yeah, the Hobie 14 then. Or, yeah, I can't think of any other boats that are native to South Africa. So that would be a good choice. Okay. Hello, Holly. Thanks for the stream. You are very welcome. Hopefully we will be seeing you out here at some point. Matthews, could you please tell what is the difference between a daggerboard and a centreboard? Okay, that's a sort of question we like. In that, it's quite a straightforward one. It is a good question though. Daggerboard or centreboard? All right, so let's see. I don't even have to draw this really, but let's do it because we can. Okay, so a daggerboard you'd have on an A class, an F18, F16, to name but three. And the daggerboard goes through the hull like a dagger, like this. So you put it all the way down if you're going upwind, and you lift it up if you're going downwind. Whereas a centreboard, this is the same for monohulls as well, will be more of a shape like this, like on a tornado. And the centreboard, if we just draw inside the hull, will have kind of, okay, nothing like this inside the hull. But anyway, this dot that I've drawn, this is where it pivots, and the centreboard will go up inside the hull, so it's pivoting. I believe in Germany, we call this a Schwenkschwerter. It's one of my favorite German words. Yeah, so centreboard pivoting, daggerboard up and down. There we go. All right. Nigel says, and with a Jenica downwind. Great on the without, thanks. And Nigel is sailing in Dale, Pembrokeshire. That is a really nice part of Wales where Nigel's sailing. So with a spinnaker downwind, no further questions, please, by the way. Got quite a few preloaded ones to get through. We've been going for an hour, and it's, I think, unless there's people watching in Australia or to the west of where I am, I'm actually in the future. So it's closer to that time for a beer for me than it is for you. All right. Oh, except for Holly, who's in Oman, further to the west. There we go. All right. So, yeah, with a spinnaker, the way that we will determine our downwind sailing angle is when we hoist the spinnaker, it's always good practice, unless you're on the race course and really trying to get tactical advantage with the spinnaker. Always good practice to hoist and drop your spinnaker with the wind coming from behind. The more behind the boat the wind is when you go to hoist the spinnaker is going to give you an easier, quicker, and less prone to going wrong spinnaker hoist. So spinnaker goes up when we've got the wind from behind us. There is the spinnaker. At this time, I'm not going to go through everything about using a spinnaker on a catamaran. I've made a really, really good video for just that. But if we talk about the course that we're going to sail with the spinnaker up, but if it's light winds, we're going to have the mainsail and the traveller almost as if the spinnaker wasn't up, but we will be watching the telltales on the mainsail for how much we're going to have that bad boy in or out. Again, we want to have the traveller in a little bit more so that we can have a bit more twist in the mainsail. So we've got the ability to pull the main sheet in the gusts or out in the lulls. So we're starting off with the boat very deep downwind. So on our telltales on the front, we'll even have them flying slightly forwards. So we're going beyond that efficient two-sail angle. And then once the spinnaker's up and we're ready, we're then going to very slowly bring the boat back towards the wind. And we're not going to sail so much unless the wind is super light by watching the telltales. Instead, we're going to sail the boat by feeling how much pressure and how the boat is responding to our change in course. If we turn towards the wind, this is how we're controlling the power with the spinnaker. Turning towards the wind is going to give us more power, and then turning away from the wind is going to give us less power. That is all of our power control with the spinnaker. There are some subtleties that we can take advantage of as well, but I'm not going to go through those right now as we are in the last third, let's say, of the session, and I've got a lot to get through. But there's a very good video. I'll try to link that in the description below after I've finished, or you could just search for catamaran spinnaker, would probably do it, hopefully, in YouTube. But thanks for the question. Germans fan, hi. All right, we've got Varga. Will you continue the quick tips series when the sailing season starts? Yeah, I hope so. I thought that was quite a good series. But to be honest, I think I kind of ran out of ideas. I'm sure more ideas will present themselves. So I'll just revisit what I've already done, have a look through, see what gaps I've left in there. But yes, I would like to. Glad you liked it. Graham, by any chance, do you know where to rent Hobie 14 Cape Town? I'd say your best bet is Langebaan, definitely. But if anybody else from South Africa here, especially around Cape Town, if you know where Graham could get hold of Hobie 14 to have a go on. I used to be a member at Milnerton Aquatic Club near Bloberg, and there was quite a good, it's a lake, quite a small lake, but there were quite a few Hobies there. I don't know if there were any 16s, but certainly a good place to go down to at the weekend if you're not keen to go all the way to Langebaan. And down at the Milnerton Aquatic Club, you could certainly meet some like-minded individuals, maybe get a spin out on a 16 or something in the southeaster. All right, Germans fan, I just got my neoprene suit. No excuses. I think if the water is in the single figures, that's the good enough excuse, I think, if you want one. Right, Dan says, where do you sail? I sail in Vasiliki on the Greek island of Lefkos, where the summer is upon us. It's very nice. Calvin, what's the best boat you reckon for me to get? Okay, with no further information than that, I'm going to have to say a Dart 16. Let's give the Dart 16 the recognition it deserves. Yeah, need more information if you want to get a good recommendation there. Or perhaps Dart 16 or the Dart 18, perhaps. Depends what's available and what you want to do. We did actually last week go through a big list. I'm not going to go through that now. If you watch last week's live stream recording, you'll see quite a comprehensive what is the best boat depending on your situation. All right. All right. Hi, Pedro. Great to have you with us. I haven't actually gone through your questions yet, Pedro. So I'm actually quite excited about that. I did a bit of research. Again, I'm just going to finish everything in the live questions and then start going through the preloaded ones. Just saw Adrian's question. That is a corker. All right, so RNDM name has got a question which is actually in the preloaded questions as well, which is, who was it in the preloaded? In the preloaded, it was from PT73 Personal Training, which I believe is Koen in the Netherlands. And what winds should you sail a Hobie 16 in? And then Koen is sailing I think he's sailing an into 20 or something similar. Yeah, so what is the right amount of wind? The right amount of wind depends greatly on your level of experience. And as you get to the upper wind limits, it really does depend on the experience of the person you're sailing with as well. But we can say straight off that at the low end of wind, like when the wind is very light, it basically depends on how keen you are to get out. If the wind is less than 5 knots, so if the sea is almost like a mirror, then are you happy just to get on the boat and just tickle along nicely? Is that day or that time the only opportunity you've got to get out sailing? If it is, then you just have to take whatever is available to you. So get out when you can. And then as the wind increases, of course, the fun starts a bit more. This sweet spot, firstly, the sweet spot for Koen with the into 20 or the bigger boats like the F18 Tornado is slightly less wind than the Hobie 16. So I would say for that, for optimal, good fun and controllable sailing for most people, you're looking at between 14 and 22 knots of wind. That is when the boat will really start going nicely. You'll be double trapezing upwind, flying a hull downwind with the spinnaker up. Really, really nice, but nothing too hardcore, which is going to risk. One of the biggest risks with those type of boats is damaging the boat if you do have some sort of gnarly crash and you get sent flying through the mainsail. Expensive and inconvenient. Whereas on a Hobie 16, I would say slightly more wind, but again, it really does depend on your experience, the experience of your crew, and what you want to get out of the boat. For example, if somebody's been sailing a 16 for about a year, I would say the upper wind that you want to be taking that boat out in would be something like 22 knots. Any more than that, and you really do risk having, let's say, a less positive time. It's going to be pretty hectic. And what you don't want to do, especially if you're at the start of the sport, or perhaps if you're breaking in a new crew, is you don't want to be out of control, because it's that out of control feeling which is going to really damage your confidence or the confidence of the crew. The confidence is one of the most delicate things on the boat. Once you've broken the confidence of either yourself or who you're sailing with, it is a very difficult thing to rebuild. So with your upper wind limit, really, really consider if you think you can sail in control in those conditions. Now, at the other end of the scale, there's, of course, Captain Joyrider TV over here, who has been doing a fair bit. So about 30 knots of wind for me would be the sweet spot. And just to go back a bit more into Koen's question, what would be the ideal wind to go really fast? Would 30 knots make you go faster than 20 knots? It depends on, firstly, number one, the ability to stay in control. From all of my speed runs last year, the fastest one was in the most wind, and that was a lot of wind, maybe 35 knots. but that one of the next fastest ones was in a much lighter wind, possibly between 25 and 30 knots of wind, but I was able to stay in much better control of the boat and for longer periods as well. So when you let the boat get kind of settled on those courses, then you can get more out of it. So I would say it's definitely whether you can stay in control of the boat. With a Hobie 16, the amount of wind to get your highest speed is much higher than on an F18 or an Inter 20 or something similar because of the shape of the hulls. So on your Inter 20, I'd say to get the highest speed, probably something around 27, 28 knots of wind with flat water is going to be optimal for the highest speed. Also, if you've got the opportunity to sail somewhere with more wind, but where the sea is going to stay completely flat, you're going to get a higher speed. So there we go. All right. All right, Pedro says, did you see the new Goodall design Akura? A really 3D hull shape. Yes, we're going to cut. Should we go through these hull shapes now, Pedro, do you think? Let's do it. I've been waiting for it. Or actually, before we go on to Pedro's hull shapes, this is a very good question that Pedro has raised with the hull shape, is let's just look at Adrian's question because it is niggling me. What is the best methodology to convince your wife to buy a catamaran for this summer? I think you've got to compare it, or maybe have an option of something else that might be a wife, maybe husband, significant other, who have something else that is perhaps going to be less, something that they will approve of less than a catamaran, and say, oh, I've been looking, I really want to get either a Hobie 16 catamaran, be really nice for going sailing, there's some nice sandy beaches we could sail to, have a picnic, that kind of thing, or there's a Ducati nosebleed motorbike which I will use exclusively on my own, and it will be extremely dangerous, extremely expensive, and you won't see me at all at weekends. Perhaps that is an option of the flavour with which you can approach that. Okay, so Pedro's got a question about hull shapes. This is a really good question, and I've rephrased the question, but what Pedro asks is, what are the benefits of modern bow profiles on catamarans? I hope that's pretty close to where Pedro was coming from. If you have watched last week's Q&A, you'll see that we went through the deck sweeper and different shapes of mainsail. So this is quite a good accompaniment to that. So this is a traditional hull shape, would be like that of the Tornado, which, let's just draw the front half, is going to be like just the front half, doesn't have a back to it. And then if we draw it from the front as well, so I'm actually going to draw the middle of the hull, and then incidentally, if you're wondering who is chief designer for TotalJoyrider.com, yes, it's me. It's not something that I claim to be an expert in, but I'll have a go. Okay, so this is the traditional hull shape that we'd have, where it goes up at the front, quite an obvious hull shape. The hull is narrow at the bottom, getting wider at the top. The more modern hull shape, this all started I can't remember how long ago it was, maybe 20 years ago, with a very large catamaran called Team Phillips, which was built to break the record for sailing across the Atlantic. And that, let's draw the bottom first. And oh my goodness, it looks kind of like that, but upside down. And then let's draw this in the same way. There's the middle. And then the profile, can we still see this yet? Is going to be like that. So very flat on the bottom and rounded on the top. So what are the benefits of this kind of hull shape compared to the traditional one? Well, the first one, this is perhaps in no particular order. So the first benefit of this hull shape is that it is wave piercing. So if you're sailing in choppy water or waves, one of the ideas with this is it's not going to ride up and down the waves so much, like in a short chop, especially once you've got the point of the bow in. So if you've got that part under the water, like for upwind sailing, for example, then the boat is just going to cut through like a knife, whereas the traditional shaped hull is very much just going to trace those waves. Yeah, so that would be point number one for why this design. Okay, the next point is on this type of design, we're going to have much less wetted surface, meaning there's going to be less hull in contact with the water, which means less drag. On this hull shape, I'm actually going to draw the water in black. The water is going to be literally there. So the only wetted surface that we have is the bottom. Whereas on this hull shape, yeah, so we could even draw that for our wetted surface. So we've got more contact between the water and the hull. Excellent. We're doing well so far. All right. The next one is, as the speed of boats has been increasing through the years, this is perhaps more of a point for the A-class boats, especially the foiling ones, is that this shape is much more aerodynamic because we've got this narrow curved profile on the top. So, and a lot of these boats also will have very much recessed parts in the hull where the beam is going to sit as well. So we're really reducing the drag with the air as well as on the water. Great stuff. The next one, reason for this is because the boat has got a flat bottom, we can have larger, longer foils. So not large, let's just say longer foils. So the daggerboard and the rudder can be longer because where they're effectively starting from is higher up. Does that make sense? So on this, because this is down in the water, we're using this part of the hull as part of our leeway prevention. Whereas on this one, it's all daggerboard, so we can have a longer daggerboard, which is more efficient for sailing upwind, and we're just going to be a lot quicker sailing upwind, and we're going to be able to point higher as well. Okay, and this is another very good one, is that with this hull shape, we're going to be less prone to pitchpoling or driving the boat underwater, unless it is in a wave and we want that to do it. We're going to use our crew weight to force the bow through. But if we don't want to drop, if we don't want the front of the boat going under the water, then if we look at our volume distribution on these hull shapes, on the traditional hull shape, the bottom of the hull hasn't got very much volume, which means that part of the boat can go down very easily because it's not very voluminous. And it's only when it gets to the top of the hull, the water will meet all this volume, which will start to offer some resistance. But by that point, you might have already gathered enough momentum and inertia that there's no coming back from that. There we go. Yeah. Whereas on this hull shape, all of the volume is at the bottom. So you've got a lot more stopping the boat from going down in the first place. So you are less likely to stick the nose in. There we go. I think those are my key points for why this hull shape is definitely taking over with the modern racing boats that we see everywhere. Okay, and just while we're on with Pedro's questions, I've got another one that Pedro's asked, and he asked, why does the Tornado Classic only have single trapeze rather than a double trapeze? I think I haven't actually researched this at all, but I would say it's because back in the day when the Tornado was designed, that was the trend. So the trend was more for single trapezing boats rather than double trapezing boats, which became the norm a lot later on than back in, I believe it was the late 60s when the Tornado was designed, when single trapezing was all the rage. The skipper was definitely meant to sit on the boat. There we go. I hope those questions, those answers are good for you there, Pedro. I thought that was pretty good, actually. Okay. Oh, and then Pedro's got an answer to how to convince your wife, buy her a new car. Yeah, I think that would certainly do it. All right. All right. So Sever Stall 81 asks, and this is something that's been on my mind. Are you still planning on doing a list of things to go over with a new crew? Yes, very much so. In fact, since you've asked, I will try to get this. I know that this is quite a hot topic, and I will try to get this one done this week. Because you've tuned in, I'll let you know now on what day is that going to be. On Friday is going to be a video about attaching the capsized writing line. I know it's not perhaps for a lot of you as exciting as other topics might be, but that is going to be a good one. Okay, there we go. Not Ausgang. Hey, wild boy. Okay, can't read some of this out. Sometimes on a high speed, this is on a Dart 18, the cat goes wiggle, wiggle, very fast, left, right, so that I have to slow down. Some very strong right, left. Yeah, I would say if when you start going fast, if your boat starts weaving a bit, it is going to be something with your rudder system that is not quite right, I would assume. So just check out your rudder system, see if there's play in the rudders. One thing that can really give you that wiggle wiggle when the speed comes on is if we're looking from the back. Here's our rudder blade. There's the hull. If the rudder blade is allowed to go from side to side, then that is really going to give you this weird out of control kind of steering feeling. Also, have a look to make sure, sorry to lay this on you, just make sure that your rudder blade is not separated. Most rudder blades are made in two halves. This is something worth checking, everybody. If you're not happy with how your boat feels, let's do a really exaggerated rudder blade. So this is an exaggerated rudder blade. And what you'd have is you have a join down the middle of the rudder blade, because the rudder blade's built in two halves, then glued together. If that join is broken, you'll see it like maybe it'll be little chips in there if it's broken. If that is broken, what it will mean is the rudder blade hasn't got that lateral strength, so it will be allowed. So this is an over-exaggerated, this is the width of the rudder blade, not the other profile, which would be, there's the hole for where it attaches. So this is looking from behind. Yeah, not my finest. Yeah, if that's starting to separate, the rudder blade's going to be allowed to bend sideways very easily, which is going to make the boat feel absolutely horrible when you start going fast. Okay, thanks very much, Nigel. And thanks for that question there, Oliver. Great stuff. And hello, howdy, Toot. Great to have you on board. Nipping in there at the end. Don't forget to hit the like button. This is actually going to have been the longest of these sessions. All right, next preloaded question. So definitely no more questions, please, because I really do need to start thinking about tying this up. All right, so I've been answering the preloaded questions. Okay, I've got one from Alan who says, I love my Hobie 18. I can't imagine a Hobie 20. What is the difference? Well, the Hobie 20 is a much more modern design, which means the way that the whole boat bolts together is quite different, which actually makes it a much stiffer platform. That is perhaps one of the most key differences. It's also, pardon me, it's got a lot more volume as well, the Hobie 20, which is great if you want to carry more people on board. And it's a bigger boat generally. It's wider, of course it's longer, but you've got a lot more trampoline space on there. It's got a flat trampoline as well, whereas on the 18 you've got that slightly curved trampoline. But the 20 is just bigger in all dimensions. It's got bigger sails, it's quicker, but it is a more modern design. It's kind of like based around the Tornado, with the pivoting centreboards, the big rig, that kind of thing. There we go. All right, we've got a fairly juicy one from Greg in Michigan, USA, and this goes something like this. Just cleaning the board. All right, what situations do you approach block to block and play main sheet besides flying a hull, doing speed runs? Okay, so when you're sailing upwind, when it's windy, if you're double trapezing, that is when you want to be block to block. Of course, like I said earlier on, you want to be adjusting your jib halyard tension to make sure that when you do go block to block in the conditions that you're sailing, you have got enough power, like you haven't let your jib halyard off too much. I'm going to do a video just on this jib halyard and the feel and the speed on the 16. I think it's quite a large topic where I think a lot of people could benefit from a bit more. But yeah, block to block when sailing upwind, because that's going to give you the tightest leech. I can't draw this. The tightest leech, and having a tight leech on the sail is going to help you to point closer to the wind. On all other points of sail, in all other wind strengths, all right, I'm just going to backpedal from that. No, in all other, then block to block, also appropriate when you're reaching. So when we're sailing across the wind, whether it's and let's be honest, whenever you're reaching in a strong wind, you are on a speed run, aren't you? you know, you're trying to go fast. So when you're in the biggest lull, so when you're trying to get the power on the most, that is when you should be block to block and then easing out in the gusts. So playing the main sheet in that situation on the beam reach. Then on the broad reach, you're not going to be block to block. We're going to have the traveller out maybe 2/3 of the way, and then a fair bit of main sheet out as well. And then we're going to be playing the main sheet. So if we get a gust, it'll be a combination of turning more downwind, easing a bit of main sheet out as we turn that corner, and then once we're established on a new course, bringing the main sheet back in a bit and settling the course. So I'll just reread this question. All right, yeah, so playing the main sheet is going to be all the time if it is required. The more you play the main sheet, the more you know where you are in terms of how much power you've got, where the limit is, and you're kind of working the boat rather than just standing on the side hoping that everything is right. When you're working the main sheet, you can really feel where the sweet spot is. When you feel that sweet spot, you know that is the amount of main sheet you need in. But of course, the wind doesn't stay exactly the same for a very long period of time. So if it starts feeling anything other than sweet, then you want to either let the main sheet out or pull it in, which is why playing the main sheet is so important. Okay, Greg continues. What situation do you put twist into the mainsail? You want twist in the mainsail, firstly, if the wind is really light. How do you put twist into the mainsail? By having the traveller in more and the main sheet looser. If you've got the main sheet loose, you're going to have a much more twisted shape. So looking at the mainsail from the back, twist means the bottom is in more than the top. That is not a particularly good drawing, but it means that the top of the sail is out more than the bottom. When sailing downwind, twist is very good until it gets really, really strong. When taking that twist out might help to make the boat feel a bit more controllable. But that is where I'm going there. So I hope that answered your question, Greg. We'll come back to this later on if you want more, but do let me know when you watch this later on if that has done it. Okay, so I've just got 2 more questions for today. The next one is from Martin, and Martin asks, where can you find a reasonably priced catamaran in Europe? Yeah, that's a good question. I would say you need to start off by having a fairly good idea of what it is that you're looking for. Martin has said 16 to 18 feet. So let's say maybe it's a Hobie 16, Hobie 18. One good way of finding one is to send me an email, say, could you put out a short video asking for a used catamaran? But that is a bit of commitment there. Once that video's gone out, that's like you've signed the contract that, yes, you're going to buy it. Of course, the one that comes up might not be very good. Who knows? Yeah, that is one method. Or the Facebook marketplace. All of the different groups on Facebook seem to be very good for boats and parts that are for sale. So that is a good place to look. Also, there are dealers, many dealers around Europe in all the different countries. So, for example, my favourite is hobiecat.nl, Hobiecat Holland, where they've always got a very good stock of second-hand boats and new boats as well. So that is well worth a look. And if you buy a used boat from a place like that, it's likely to have had its rigging replaced and had some work done to it, so you don't need to do any kind of refurb job. Whereas from anyone else, from buying from a private buyer, you're more likely to need to do a bit of work to the boat. There we go. All right, last question for today is from Tom. And Tom says, have you ever capsized with an F18 or tornado, and what do you do with the spinnaker? That is a very good question to finish with. First, yes, I have capsized with both. The F18 many times. And what to do with the spinnaker is, I'd say in 90% of situations, you want to get the spinnaker down before bringing the boat back upright. Because what happens with the spinnaker when you're capsized is it will fill with water, and basically it will give you that feeling that the spinnaker is like a bag of water at the top of the mast, which is going to prevent you from bringing the boat back upright. And then also, if you bring the boat upright and it's windy with the spinnaker up, then when you're getting upright, that is something else that's going on while you're trying to get back onto the boat. It's going to be flogging like a witch, making a load of noise. It's going to be a very intimidating situation, not very pleasant. Your sail's going to be getting damaged, so definitely worth taking the spinnaker down before righting the boat. Yeah. If you've got a spinnaker chute on your boat, that is going to be fairly straightforward to do. Just release the halyard and pull her into the chute. Whereas if you're sailing with a bag system, we had to do this all of the time up until, I think it was probably something like 2003, 2002, when everything changed to chutes and not bags. Bags were basically where, when you weren't using the spinnaker, you'd keep the sail in a bag on the trampoline. A lot more difficult to do when you're capsized, of course. So what you have to do is grab the spinnaker into your hands physically, and then release the halyard, bundle the sail up, and then what we used to do is put it on the lower part of the sail, unless it was really windy. And then when you bring the boat upright, it will just drop onto the trampoline. Lovely. If it was really windy, then perhaps we'd look at tucking it under a tow strap or improvising to keep it under control. Okay, so Tom, thanks very much for your question, and thanks to everybody else for your questions. I think this has been quite a vibrant session. I think it's been very good. Don't forget to hit the like button before you go, and good luck to all of you until next week. If you haven't yet sent in pictures of your boat for Show Us Your Cat, it is getting a little bit that way, where we need to have some, probably got enough for the next 2 weeks, but you know, if you're considering it, then now is the time. All right, thanks everybody. Yes, I'll see you soon with some more, and there we go. Stay safe out there. Thank you very much.